Good evening. You're watching the news tonight, your daily roundup of all that has happened across India and the world. I'm Ishan Russell, and these are the headlines that we're tracking this evening. Pakistani authorities file FIR on the Pathankot terror attack, but the FIR fails to name Masood Azhar or his organization Jaish-e-Mohammed. The Jat community's agitation for reservation escalates in Haryana. One person reportedly killed and 9 injured in protests. The Delhi High Court to hear the bail petition of jailed JNU Students' Union President Kanayakumars next week. Former Delhi University professor S.A.R. Gilani's petition for bail dismissed by the Patiala House Court. President's rule lifted in Arunachal Pradesh. Congress dissident leader Kanayakumars to be sworn in as the new chief minister after the Supreme Court rejects petition for floor test. And US imposes new sanctions on North Korea. China blocks prospective curbs by the United Nations Security Council. A top story this evening. Over a month after the Pathankot terror attack, Pakistani authorities today filed an FIR at the Counter-Terrorism Department Centre in Gujranwala in the Punjab province. But the FIR doesn't mention either the Jaish-e-Mohammed militant group or its chief Masood Azhar for the crime.
Pakistani authorities finally filing an FIR in the Pathankot terror attack, but one that does not name Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar, despite India naming him as the mastermind. The FIR that mentions unknown persons comes after weeks of inquiry into the attack.
10 दिन पहले उन्होंने कहा था जो हिंदुस्तान ने एविडेंस दिया उसमें कुछ दम ही नहीं है और उसके बेसिस के ऊपर FIR फाइल नहीं हो सकती. अभी जो खबर आई है कि FIR फाइल कर दी गई है मसूद अजहर और 4 और अननोन के, बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट है और दोनों देशों के ताल्लुकात में इम्प्रूवमेंट लाने के लिए ज़रूरी है. इसी के बेसिस के ऊपर जो फॉरेन सेक्रेटरीज की बातचीत होनी है और NSS की बातचीत होनी है उसके लिए भी आगे की कार्रवाई हो सकती है.
Pakistani authorities say the FIR will be the basis to start police and judicial proceedings. It was lodged on the basis of information provided by National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. Besides Azhar, India has identified his brother Rauf and 5 others for carrying out the attack. The FIR also mentions telephone numbers contacted by the militants. The Pathankot attack triggered the postponement of the Foreign Secretary's meeting in Islamabad in January. Since then, no date has been fixed for talks. After filing the FIR, Pakistan's Punjab Province Law Minister Rana Sanaullah said India will be asked for more information. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, the army at home has been called in for deployment in 8 districts of Haryana after 1 person was killed and 21 injured as the Jat stir for quota turned violent. Curfew has also been imposed in Rohtak, Bhiwani city areas, and Home Minister Rajnath Singh has assured assistance to the state government. Members of the Jat community are demanding reservation under the other backward classes category.
On the 6th day of protests, the agitation over Jat reservations took a violent turn in Haryana. Protesters burnt vehicles and torched Haryana Minister Captain Abhimanyu's house. Road and rail traffic was disrupted in the Rohtak-Jhajjar region, the focal point of the agitation, besides Bhiwani, Sonipat and Hisar. Mobile and internet services also remained suspended.
सरकार आती है हमारे को बेवकूफ बनाने के सिवाय कुछ नहीं करती. सबसे ज्यादा वोट बैंक इस प्रदेश के अंदर जाट वर्ग का है और जो सरकार आती है हमें झूठ बोल करके हमारी वोट ले जाती है और फिर हमारे जो मामले हैं उनकी तरफ कोई नहीं देखता.
पूरा हरियाणा हमने चक्का जाम कर रखा है और जब तक हमारे जो जमींदार भाइयों पर ना तो जमीन रही है ना नौकरी रही है वो कहाँ जाए. उनको आरक्षण देके उनका आरक्षण खोसा गया है दोबारा. ये एक आदमी को खाना खिला के उल्टा निकलवाना कितनी बड़ी बात है. और हमारे सारे युवा बेरोजगार खड़े हैं आज के दिन और इनकी जो है ना देश के लिए अन्न पैदा करते हैं इनको आरक्षण देना पड़ेगा. इसमें से सेंटर हो चाहे हरियाणा गवर्नमेंट हो इनको देना पड़ेगा. नहीं तो मार पार की लड़ाई लड़ेंगे. हम कोई भी बलिदान देने के तैयार है.
The Jat community that constitutes 28% of the state's population is seeking reservation under the OBC category in government jobs and educational institutions. Jat leaders refused to call off the strike despite the state government's offer of increasing reservations for the economically backward classes from 10 to 20%. At an all-party meet convened today, Chief Minister Manohar Lal Khattar appealed for peace.
भारतीय जनता पार्टी पहले से इस पक्ष में है। कुछ कानूनी तकनीकी खामियों की वजह से आरक्षण सुप्रीम कोर्ट द्वारा निरस्त हुआ। सरकार इसके उपाय खोज रही है और मुझे उम्मीद है कि जल्द ही ऐसा कोई उपाय हमें मिलेगा जिससे जाट आरक्षण दोबारा लागू हो सके।
मीटिंग हुई, इस विश्वविद्यालय मीटिंग में भी जो विषय था सबकी सहमति बनी और यहाँ तक भी सहमति हुई कि यहाँ के जो CS चीफ सेक्रेटरी उनकी अध्यक्षता में कमेटी बनाएगी और आने वाले विधानसभा में कैसे इस विषय को किया जा सकता है इसके लिए सबके सुझाव मांगे गए। और मुख्यमंत्री लगातार अपील कर रहे हैं कि व्यक्ति कोई भी हो वो कानून अपने हाथ में ना ले, चाहे वो जाट है चाहे वो नॉन जाट है।
The opposition claims the state government is not doing enough.
There is a Supreme Court decision which has been taken on this particular issue. So therefore, under the Indian constitutional scheme, once the Supreme Court speaks, that is supposed to be the final word.
इसके लिए स्वयं सरकार जिम्मेवार है। हमने सरकार को जब इस प्रकार की ब्रिगेड बनाने की बात आई थी, चाहे OBC ब्रिगेड की बात करें या कि जाट आरक्षण वालों की ब्रिगेड की बात करें, तब मुख्यमंत्री को कहा था कि मुख्यमंत्री जी ऐसी ब्रिगेडों पर रोक लगाएं, नहीं तो सिविल वार होने का खतरा है।
Earlier, the Punjab and Haryana High Court asked the Khattar government to file a status report on the law and order situation. The Rohtak District Administration also declared holiday in all educational institutions till February 21st. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
The latest on the bail petition of JNU Students' Union President Kanayakumars, and the Supreme Court today refused to hear the plea, claiming that his lawyers had to go approach the High Court first to avoid setting a wrong precedent. It, however, did ask the government and Delhi police to ensure Kanaya and his lawyers were provided proper security at the High Court. Here are more details.
Jawaharlal Nehru University Students' Union President Kanayakumars will stay in jail for now. The High Court could not hear his plea after the matter could not be listed in time. Earlier, the Supreme Court had declined to take up Kanayakumars' petition, instead asking him to go to the High Court. The Apex Court also ordered that proper security be given to Kumar.
सारी अपनी दलीलें किसी भी दलील पे जब वो नहीं चल पाए तो कहने लगा कि क्योंकि ये मैटर ऑलरेडी है कोर्ट के पास है तो इसलिए इसको सुन लिया जाए। कोर्ट ने इसको वापस नीचे भेज दिया कि इस तरह की दलीलें हम स्वीकार नहीं करेंगे। हाई कोर्ट में भेजा गया है। हाई कोर्ट में।
Meanwhile, a medical examination report says the JNUSU president sustained external injuries during the attack on him at the Patiala House Court complex, even as Delhi Police Commissioner B.S. Bassi continues to refute the allegations. The commissioner also opposes Kumar's bail plea, saying it would mean an increased security burden on his men.
चूंकि कन्हैया एक कंट्रोवर्शियल केस में इन्वॉल्व है, तो हो सकता है कि उसके लिए हमें कुछ सुरक्षा देनी पड़ेगी अगर उसे उसकी बेल हो जाती है।
Even as no action has been initiated against Vikram Chauhan, the lawyer who led the attack on journalists, teachers and students at the Patiala House Courts this week, hundreds of lawyers responded to a call from him and marched on the streets of Delhi on Friday.
हम उन्हें कड़े शब्दों में एक निंदा करते हैं और ये बताना चाहते हैं कि जो भारत देश है, भारत देश एक विशाल बहुत बड़ा देश है, इसके अंदर हम ये चीज़ जो हो रही है हम उस चीज़ को कदापि बर्दाश्त नहीं करेंगे और हम ये सरकार से अपील करते हैं कि ये जो एक्टिविटीज़ कर रहे हैं लोग, उनके अंदर देशद्रोह के मुकदमे चलाए जाएं और उनको बिना ट्रायल उनके ऊपर कड़ी से कड़ी कार्रवाई की जाए।
Lawyers in other cities too joined in. In Jammu and Lucknow, lawyers took out protest marches, saying they were protesting against anti-national elements.
अपनी सॉलिडिटी शो करते हैं, हमारी ये बार देशभक्त बार है और हम अपनी देशभक्ति के लिए अपना खून भी निछावर कर देंगे, उसके लिए हम पीछे नहीं हटेंगे। लेकिन जो लोग ये कहते हैं कि भारत के टुकड़े टुकड़े कर देंगे, हम उनको ये चेतावनी देना चाहते हैं कि भारत के टुकड़े आप बाद में करोगे, हम उन लोगों के टुकड़े कर देंगे।
However, support for the student leader also continues to gain ground around the country.
This extraordinary situation has been recognized is in itself a big blow to the government, and now that their entire case is based on a fake video that has come to light, I mean the government should be running for cover.
पुलिस और
पटियाला हाउस के वकीलों के में आपस में काफ़ी मिली भगत है, क्योंकि जिस तरह से सुप्रीम कोर्ट के ऑर्डर का उल्लंघन किया गया और जर्नलिस्ट को बेइज्जत किया गया।
In a related development, DU Professor S.A.R. Gilani's bail plea has been rejected. The 46-year-old professor was also arrested on charges of incitement and sedition. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
The President's rule was lifted in Arunachal Pradesh a day after the Supreme Court gave the clearance for a new government in the state. The Supreme Court also rejected a petition by deposed Chief Minister Nabam Tuki seeking an interim direction that his party be allowed to go for a floor test in the Assembly. The Union Cabinet recommended withdrawal of central rule on Wednesday after dissident Congress leader Kanayakumars, accompanied by 31 MLAs, including Congress rebels, BJP and independents, met Governor J.P. Rajya to stake claim to form a new government. Media agencies said Pul will be sworn in as Chief Minister later tonight. Time now to take a look at what else is making news around the country and nationwide. The Delhi High Court on Friday rejected a plea filed against exemption for women in two-wheelers in the odd-even car rationing scheme. The plea had opposed the exemptions for the second phase of the scheme to be implemented in the national capital between the 15th and the 30th of April. Delhi Police Chief B.S. Basi's name has been dropped from the list of officials for the post of Information Commissioner in the Central Information Commission. His name was dropped by a selection panel led by the Prime Minister, which has now cleared 3 names. A 60-year-old woman died of swine flu in Rajasthan, taking the death toll in the state from the disease to 30 since January this year. 145 out of the 1,250 samples collected in the state have tested positive. The State Medical and Health Department is taking effective surveillance, monitoring and treatment of patients as key measures to contain the spread of the virus. 4 Naxals were killed in an encounter between security forces and Maoists at a village near Ranchi Thursday night. Security forces had acted on a tip-off about the movement of a group of Naxals in the jungle when the rebels opened fire at them. 2 SLRs and 2 303 rifles have also been recovered from the spot. Now to our special series on the Union Budget and the expectations from it, and we take a look at the defence allocation today. Now, faced with huge import bills, the government is expected to lay critical emphasis on its Make in India endeavour in the sector.
The world's third largest standing army with 1 million active personnel is investing in the latest weapons. From 2010 to 2014, all that modernization has made India the world's biggest arms importer. The government wants to get rid of the tag by increasing indigenous production, which is why industry experts see a significant hike in capital expenditure in the offing.
With Make in India announcement, what started happening is all the programs which the government today is taking a decision, decisions are being made in favor of Indian private industry. We certainly see an increase on defense budget. On an average, if we look at the long-term trends, defense budgets do grow about 10 to 12% every year.
Historically, India has been importing up to 70 to 80% defense hardware from abroad. In the latest 2.5 years, the import component has come down to 60%, which in the next 5 years, the government wants to bring down to 50%. The government is planning a capital expenditure of over 1 lakh crore rupee this year, with a significant part of the orders expected to be executed by public and private sector companies. But despite the heavy investment, experts feel indigenous production of defense hardware are still a long way away.
It's unlikely to happen in a very short term. That's going to happen over a medium to long term. Because even if you start setting up manufacturing processes for making the defense equipment, it'll take a while. But yes, what it will do is that a large part of money that under the defense expenditure used to be spent on acquiring foreign, equipments. Now that money will be spent on acquiring, equipments which are manufactured within the country.
India's average annual defense budget of $30 billion is almost one-third that of China. Between 2009 to 2014, India imported 100,000 crore rupee in military hardware, nearly 40 times more than its exports. Achieving a sizable cut in this figure is one important expectation from the upcoming budget. Palak Sharma's report for Rajya Sabha Television.
The all-important halwa ritual kicked off the printing of the budget documents today. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley and his deputy Jayant Sinha attended the ceremony in which halwa was prepared and served to the entire staff in the Finance Ministry. Employees, including officials and support staff printing the budget papers, will stay in complete isolation from today for the entire week till the presentation of the budget. We'll be right back after this short break.
NDA government's third budget. Will it be a path-breaking one? Will it fuel the government's development thrust? Watch the brightest minds dissect budget proposals. 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. on February 29th on Rajya Sabha Television.
Welcome back. You're watching the news tonight. Now, in a bid to bring Indo-Nepalese ties back on track, the Himalayan Kingdom's Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli has begun his India visit. He'll meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Saturday. Talks between the two sides are expected to focus on bilateral and developmental issues.
Nepal's Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli has begun his 6-day India visit after 2 months of deliberations and subsequent delays. Oli is accompanied by his wife and a high-level ministerial delegation. He received a ceremonial welcome at the airport.
This will be his first visit abroad after taking over as Prime Minister in October 2015. It would also be the first bilateral visit of a Nepali Prime Minister to India since Baburam Bhattarai's visit in October 2011. Former Prime Minister, late Prime Minister Sushil Koirala had visited India in May 2014 for the swearing-in of our Prime Minister. And as you know, Prime Minister Modi had visited Nepal in August 2014 for a bilateral visit, which was the first bilateral visit from an Indian Prime Minister to Nepal in 17 years. And then Prime Minister had gone again in November 2014 for the SAARC summit.
Prime Minister Oli is scheduled to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Saturday. The focus there will be bilateral and developmental issues. The Nepalese Prime Minister will then head to Bhuj to look at post-earthquake rehabilitation and restructuring work.
Prime Minister of Nepal will leave for Bhuj in Gujarat. He'll be meeting the Gujarat government officials. He'll visit the relocation site. Basically, this is to understand how we did earthquake reconstruction after the Bhuj earthquake. And from Gujarat, he will leave for Mumbai. He will meet the governor of Maharashtra.
Oli is also scheduled to meet President Pranab Mukherjee, Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari, besides the senior cabinet ministers. He will also meet business leaders in Mumbai.
To keep India under pressure, Prime Minister Oli wanted to visit China on his first prime ministerial visit abroad. But China indicated that it cannot replace India in Nepal. Now that Prime Minister Oli is here in India, he should try to settle issues with Madhesis and take Nepal on the path of progress and stability. Akhilesh Suman for Rajya Sabha Television with camera person Ashwini in Delhi.
Some other international news now. In Deal or No Deal, it's crunch time at a summit in Brussels as Europe's leaders try to reach an agreement on Britain's EU reform demands. Prime Minister David Cameron is arguing for more concessions from the European Union. Leaders of the 28-nation bloc have described the summit as the best chance to prevent Britain from leaving the EU family.
At the Brussels summit, British Prime Minister David Cameron seeking a new membership deal with the European Union.
Good morning, hi. Well, I was here till 5 o'clock this morning working through this, and we've made some progress, but there's still no deal. And as I've said, I'd only do a deal if we get what Britain needs. So we're going to get back in there, we're going to do some more work, and I'll do everything I can.
UK wants to limit benefits for migrants. amid stiff resistance from Poland, Hungary, Slovakia and the Czech Republic. Cameron is arguing for more concessions from the European Union, measures that he can present as a victory to encourage voters to stay on in the Union. Contentious issues of migration curbs and financial safeguards dominated the debate that ran through Friday night.
I'm quite confident that we will have a deal during this European Council. We have to sort out a certain number of questions, among those the one you are mentioning, and I'm convinced that Britain will be a constructive and active member of the European Union.
No one thought it was going to be easy, but the deal on new membership terms for UK is proving more time-consuming than many had hoped.
Alle haben diese Aussprache in dem Geist geführt, dass der Wunsch besteht, Großbritannien als Mitglied der Europäischen Union zu erhalten. Es sind alle Körbe der Wünsche und der Forderungen Großbritanniens durchgegangen worden. Und es ist sichtbar geworden, dass die Einigung sicherlich vielen nicht ganz leicht fällt, aber dass doch der Wille da ist.
European Council President Donald Tusk made it clear just how important renegotiating Britain's membership is, calling it as a make or break summit.
For now, I can only say that we have made some progress, but a lot still remains to be done. Now I will hold a series of bilateral meetings, starting with Prime Minister Cameron, President Hollande, Prime Minister Sobotka and Prime Minister Michel.
Many leaders are calling it a historic turning point for European integration. No country has ever voted to leave the Union, and a British exit could deal a blow to UK's economy and damage its standing and self-confidence. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
The United States imposed new sanctions on North Korea. The measure is intended to compel American allies to enact similarly tough restrictions to further isolate the country, which recently concluded another nuclear test and launched a satellite into space. Meanwhile, sanctions have been held up at the United Nations Security Council over disagreements between China and the other nations.
US slapping North Korea with more stringent sanctions. Weeks after it conducted its fourth nuclear test and launched a satellite carrying rocket into space. US President Obama signed the expanded sanctions on Friday after Democratic and Republican lawmakers overwhelmingly approved the bill last week. The House voted 408-4-2 after a unanimous vote by the Senate. The new measures will deny North Korea money it needs to develop miniaturized warheads and the long-range missiles to deliver them. The sanctions come at a time when the US and China are negotiating over a United Nations Security Council resolutions on North Korea. China, an ally of Pyongyang, says sanctions could debilitate North Korea's economy.
敏感的形势之下，有关各方都应该保持冷静克制，不做使局势升级的事情。
Meanwhile, a senior official in Seoul said North Korea is planning to launch terrorist attacks inside the south. The US and South Korea are trying to increase pressure on the communist regime by stepping up arms deployment in the Korean peninsula and joint military drills. The US naval forces stationed in South Korea held a ceremony on Friday to mark relocation of its base to the port city of Busan.
And our two naval commands join together in one location, an act that reinforces the traits that make our combined force, I think, great, strong, and unique. And that's candid communication, mutual values, and constant collaboration.
However, Kim Jong-un's regime remains belligerent. On Friday, it gave awards to scientists, technicians, and officials involved in the recent rocket launch, which North Korea says successfully placed a satellite in orbit. Critics call it a test of banned missile technology. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Some more international news now in Global Buzz. Austria's new cap on asylum seekers came into force today. The European Commission has described the move as incompatible with EU laws. A maximum of 80 immigrants per day are being allowed to claim asylum in the country. In addition, Vienna is limiting the daily number of people transiting Austria to seek asylum in a neighbouring country to 3,200. Fighting at a UN compound in South Sudan has killed 18 people. An official said that youths from the Shilluk and Dinka ethnic groups, both staying in its protection site, began fighting on Wednesday night using small arms, machetes and other weapons. 36 people were also wounded in the fight, including at least 25 with gunshot wounds. Journalist Mohammad Al-Kik is on his 85th day of his hunger strike. The strike began as a protest against his administrative detention by Israel. Al-Kik has been close pushed to death by the hunger strike. He started on the 25th of November last year. He's refused to end it even after his administrative detention was suspended but not cancelled by Israel's Supreme Court. Amnesty International has called for Israel to grant Al-Kik's request to be treated in a hospital of his choice. After calling Pope Francis's remarks against him disgraceful, US presidential frontrunner Donald Trump appears to have mellowed down, saying he does not like fighting with the Pope. The pontiff had criticized Trump, saying the latter cannot claim to be a Christian, further slamming his comments on immigration. In a swift reaction, Trump had fired back at the Pope, but later softened his stance. All the action from the world of sports now in Sports Beat. Rafael Nadal will now play the quarterfinals of the Rio Open after he defeated Nicolas Almagro 6-3, 7-5. Nadal is playing his second tournament after he was knocked out in the first round of the Australian Open. After losing in the semi-finals in Buenos Aires last weekend to Dominic Thiem, Nadal has made steady progress in the second round, seeing off world number 53 Almagro in less than 2 hours at the court. Andy Ganthuame, a former West Indian and Trinidad and Tobago wicketkeeper batsman, died at the age of 95. He was the West Indies' oldest living cricketer and the world's second oldest. He scored 112 on Test debut against England in 1948. Ganthuame didn't get a chance to bat in the second innings and therefore became the only player to finish with a batting average of over 100. Vijender Singh has set his sights on the WBO Asia belt. The middleweight boxer earned worldwide fame by becoming India's first Olympic and World Championship medalist at the amateur level, has exhibited rampaging form even in the pro arena. Delhi will be hosting WBO Asia this June. Manchester United produced another underwhelming display as they lost to a Danish side 1-2 in the first leg of their Europa League last 32 tie. United took the lead through Memphis Depay, but the Danish side scored in the second half to take 1-goal advantage in the second leg to be played at Old Trafford next week. FIFA's Ethics Committee investigator has recommended life bans for the former presidents of the Colombian and Chilean football federations after finding cases of misconduct, including on bribery and corruption. Colombia's Luis Bedoya, a former FIFA executive and committee member, and Chile's Sergio Uade have already pleaded guilty in the United States to racketeering conspiracy and wire fraud conspiracy. Well, that's the news tonight. Good night.